What's up, guys? My name is TechnoTuner, and today I'm bringing to you an updated Ogdoadic Mitsurugi Reptilian deck profile. While I know my last deck profile came out right after the supposed point adjustment, which made Mitsurugi Habakiri, I believe, 100 points, we did need to go through and update it. And I'm sorry that that came out so late and has needed some great updates to really make the deck work. But this deck still has some really good consistency. It has a lot of good capability to set up some control and interaction while also making it a little bit harder for your opponent to play. So I want to go through today and just say, first off, I'm sorry about that. I was not expecting the point ban list to drop around then. I was expecting after Halloween. And second off, I want to get this out to you guys as soon as possible, just to show you what the deck can actually do. I hope you guys do enjoy this deck profile, and let's go ahead and hop right into this. So, first up, for the main deck, we're playing, for our Ogdoadic core, we're playing 3 Noya, the Ogdoadic Remnant. It's a level 4 Dark Reptile. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, send 1 light reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Ogdoadic spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Noya, the Ogdoadic Remnant, once per turn. While this card does help us get our lights and darks in the graveyard, it is a main component to allow us to get our Water Lily, so we can send and summon a monster that we really want onto the board. Next, I play 2 Nunu, the Ogdoadic Remnant. While this card is really helpful, it doesn't get us to what we really need a lot of the times. We do need it in the graveyard or on the board in a function so we can tribute it for either a Ogdoadic or a Mitsurugi card. But the fun part about it is you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, send 1 Dark Reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. If you control no monsters, or you control an Ogdoadic monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, but banish it when it leaves the field. Also cannot special summon monsters except reptile monsters while this card is face up in the main monster zone. You can only use each effect of Nunu the Ogdoadic Remnant once per turn. So, that's the only ones that we're really running at more than 1. The main reason why we run Nunu at 2 is because if we see it in hand, we can really just utilize it to get Naya into the graveyard so we have interaction or a tribute summon we can utilize. But the main thing that we're wanting to utilize out of this is really the graveyard, so we can either A, summon it and tribute it off for either Cruise, Alert, Amnesia, Aaron, Nephilis, Ogda Abyss, all those. But if we can't, that's perfectly fine. Speaking of the rest, we got 1 Cruise, 1 Elliot, 1 Amnesia, 1 Aaron, 1 Neptibus, and 1 Ogda Abyss. Now, I know you guys are like, oh, well, this is the same lineup you gave last time. Yeah, it's true. But the thing is, I feel like these at 1 each is very helpful because even if you see them in hand, you can utilize them as ritual resources for your Mitsurugi cards if you draw into a ritual summon, or you can tribute summon them if you need to. The other thing is, being able to utilize these cards with Lair of Darkness, it helps out a lot to give you a free tribute to summon them. Such as Cruise the Ogdoadic Light. If this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute 1 monster, special summon this card. Then your opponent can special summon 1 monster from their graveyard, but negates effects. If this card is special summon, you can target 1 level 4 lower Ogdoadic monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Cruise Ogdoadic Light once per turn. Next, we have Elliot the Ogdoadic Dark. If this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute 1 monster, special summon this card. Then your opponent can add 1 monster from their graveyard to your hand. If this card is special summon, you can target 2 of your banished monsters, including a reptile monster, return them to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Elliot, the Ogdoadic Dark, once per turn. So, while Cruise takes effect of Nunu, so basically the normal combo is you special Nunu, summon Cruise to then revive Noya. Noya will then trigger, getting us a Ogdoadic Water Lily. Then we'll tribute Noya, summoning Elliot to get Nunu and Naya back into the graveyard so we have more bodies to trigger off the special summon effect of Water Lily. Amnesia is a really good card as well because if this card is in your graveyard, you contribute 2 monsters, special summon this card. If a monster is special summoned from your opponent's graveyard, except during the damage step, you can send 1 card they control to the graveyard. If a monster is sent from your opponent's hand or deck to the graveyard, except during damage step, you can special summon one light or dark reptile monster from your graveyard, except Amnesia. You can only use each effect of Amnesia, the Ogdoadic Queen, once per turn. Yes, so it says one light or dark reptile. This means you can revive your Mitsurugi cards if you need to off that effect. Next, we have the one Aaron, the Ogdoadic King. If this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute 2 monsters, special summon this card. If your opponent adds a card to their hand except during the damage step or draw phase, you can send one random card from their hand to the graveyard. If a monster your opponent controls is sent to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can add one light or dark reptile from your deck or graveyard to the hand, except Aaron the Ogdoadic King. You can only use each effect of Aaron the Ogdoadic King once per turn. So basically we have our on the field send and our hand rip, which can very much help us either way, and especially in recycling resources. So if we want a ritual back in hand, or if we want one on board, we can utilize their effects easily. Then we have Nephilim, the Ogdoadic Overlord. If a monster is sent from hand or deck to the graveyard, those cards in your graveyard, except during damage step, you can special summon this card. Also, you cannot special summon monsters until the end of the next turn, except reptile monsters. If you control this card that was special summoned from the graveyard, you can target one monster in your graveyard, except Nephilim, the Ogdoadic Overlord, special summon it. You can only use each effect of Nephilim, the Ogdoadic Overlord, once per turn. This card helps out so much because if you have a Mitsurugi card in the graveyard and you want to summon Nephilim, you can summon Nephilim, that's perfectly fine, and then utilize its effect to revive that Mitsurugi monster to then use the Mitsurugi effect to get you a spell, monster, etc. to continue your combo. Then finally we have the one board breaker, which is Ogdoadic, the Ogdoadic Overlord. If this card is in your graveyard, you contribute 3 monsters, special summon this card. Once while this card is face up on the field, quick effect. You can send all monsters from the field to the graveyard, except face up monsters, special summon from the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Ogdoadic, Ogdoadic Overlord once per turn, which can help out greatly because it is not a destruction effect, it is a send effect. So it does get around the whole cannot be destroyed by card effect or cannot be targeted. So it does help with that. But that's all that I'm running for the actual Ogdoadic core of monsters. Let's go ahead and see what else I'm running. So, for the Mitsurugi core, I'm running one Futsu because this card is still beneficial, even if we can't use the Habakiri. And then I'm running 2 Ame, no Murakumo. No Murakumo, of course, is our... If this card is special summon, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls. When your opponent activates a card or effect, you can activate this effect. Your opponent can discard 1 card or that effect is negated. If this card is tributed, you can add 1 Mitsurugi card from your deck to your hand, except Ame no Murakumo no Mitsurugi. Then you can special summon this card. And then Futsu, of course, is if your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can target 1 reptile monster in your graveyard, except Futsu no Mitama no Mitsurugi, and special summon it. You can only activate this effect of Futsu no Mitama no Mitsurugi once per chain. Since it's a once per chain effect, you can continuously keep summoning back actual reptile monsters to help you build your board, such as Aaron, the Ogdoadic, Amnesia, all of them. If this card is tributed, you can add 1 Mitsurugi card from your deck to your hand, except Futsu. Then you can special summon this card. So fun fact, since their effect happens on tribute, you can tribute them for an Ogdoadic monster in the graveyard, and then they will revive themselves while also giving you access to getting another Mitsurugi card. But that's not all the Mitsurugi cards I'm really running. Given that we need to search our spells a lot more, and we really want to see our ritual monsters, we're going to be running 3 Mitsurugi no Mikoto Saji and 3 Mitsurugi no Mikoto Aramasa. While we're still running the 1 Mitsurugi no Mikoto Kusanagi, that's perfectly fine because we can recycle them back in. I'll show you, explain a little bit more once we get there. But Saji is our spell searcher, Mikoto Aramasa is our monster searcher, and then Kusanagi is our graveyard recovery, where basically when this is normal, special, or tribute summoned, for any of these 3, they get their respective effects. Saji lets you search and add one Mitsurugi spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Aramasa lets you add a Mitsurugi monster. And then Kusanagi lets you target one Mitsurugi card in your graveyard or banishment, and then add it to your hand. Now, if another reptile monster you control will be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you contribute each of these cards if they're on the board. But that's all the actual Mitsurugi monsters that I'm running for the main deck. The one thing that I will state is that if you really want to go for a more heavy recovery in case your opponent is running the called by in Genesys format or anything like that to really hit any cards in your graveyard, I would recommend upping Mitsurugi no Makoto Kusanagi to 2. That's if you're really in a format where your opponent is running DD Crow a lot more heavier than you would expect. That way you always have that access to really utilize it if you need to. Next up, I'm running a small reptilian package, which is 3 reptilian Kotal and 1 reptilian Nayami. Now, while reptilian Kotal is a really good card for letting you get into your level 8 synchros, Nayami is not as great. It should be, if you're looking for a better option so you can go into a level 6 synchro, look towards Reptilian Lamia. Lamia is a lot better and a free special summon if you control, I believe, a reptile monster. But Reptilian Quotal, if you control a dark reptile monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then if your opponent controls any monsters with 0 attack, you can special summon up to an equal number of reptilian monsters from your hand. You can only use this effect of Reptilian Kotal once per turn. If this card you control will be used as synchro material for a reptile monster, you can treat it as a non-tuner. That's perfectly fine. Reptilian Nayami, the reason why I'm running her over Lamia is because during the main phase, if you have a reptile monster in your graveyard, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, change its attack to 0. If your opponent controls a monster with 0 attack, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only use one Reptilian Nayami effect per turn, and only once that turn. So while it is technically a battle fader for one monster, it does help a lot because that is a permanent attack drop. But that's all the monsters that I'm really running for the main deck. As for the actual spells, we're running 3 Ogdoadic Water Lily. Send 1 reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then if you have 5 or more reptile monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can special summon 1 reptile monster from your graveyard. You can only activate 1 Ogdoadic Water Lily once per turn. Then I'm running 3 Snake Rain. This, of course, is the automatic best card for the actual deck, since we play around the graveyard a lot. But you discard 1 card, send 4 reptiles from your deck to the graveyard. So this helps you get your Ogdoadic combo really rolling as soon as possible. Next up, we play 2 Layer Darkness. Because all face-up monsters on the field become dark, once per turn, if you attribute a monster you control to activate a card effect, you contribute 1 dark monster your opponent controls, even though you do not control it. Once per turn, during the end phase, special summon as many Torment tokens, Fiend, Dark, level 3, Attack 1000, Defense 1000 as possible to that turn's player's field in defense position, up to the number of monsters tributed this turn while this card was face up. So, that card helps us with our Ogdoadics because we contribute our opponent's monsters to summon them by their effect. Next up, I'm running 2 Super Poly because since everything's going to be dark, if we have Layer Darkness on board or if there's problematic monsters on the board that we can't really deal with, Super Poly can help us clean this up. Then, of course, we're playing the 1 Mitsurugi Ritual, the 1 Mitsurugi Magatama, 1 Mitsurugi Mirror, the 1 Mitsurugi Sacred Boundary, and the 1 Mitsurugi Great Purification. Now, for Mitsurugi Ritual, yes, it is 51 points. But, along with the Super Poly, you are running at, 13? So 26 plus 51. That's 77 points. That is pretty cheap for an actual deck, giving you a little extra legroom if you want to run Joel Locks, Follows, Nibiru's, etc. Mitsurugi Ritual. This card can be used to ritual summon any reptile ritual monster. Activate these effects, but you can only use each effect of Mitsurugi Ritual once per turn. Ritual summon 1 reptile ritual monster from your deck by attributing reptile monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal that level of the ritual monster. Ritual summon 1 reptile ritual monster from your hand by attributing up to 2 reptile monsters from your hand deck, or field whose total levels equal the level of the ritual monster. Mitsurugi Magatama. During the main phase, activate one of these effects. Tribute one reptile monster, then target one face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. Ritual summon one Mitsurugi ritual monster from your hand by attributing monsters you control whose total levels equal or exceed its level. You can only activate one Mitsurugi Magatama once per turn. Mitsurugi Mirror. This card can be used to ritual summon any reptile ritual monster from your hand or graveyard. You must also attribute reptile monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster. If Ame no Murakumo no Mitsurugi, Futsu no Mitama no Mitsurugi, or Ame no Habakiri no Mitsurugi you control is tributed, while this card is in your graveyard, you can shuffle this card into the deck. You can only use each effect of Mitsurugi Mirror once per turn. That's perfectly fine. We don't utilize the last effect that often, but we can if we really need to. But this is the card that basically helps us recycle all our Mitsurugi cards that we really need. And it makes it to where they can't target our ritual monsters with effects of monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. So, your opponent cannot target Mitsurugi ritual monsters you control with the effects of monsters that were special summoned. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to get a better view for you guys. Your opponent cannot target Mitsurugi ritual monsters you control with effects of monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. You can target 4 Mitsurugi cards in your graveyard except Sacred Boundary, shuffle them into the deck. Then if your opponent controls a monster, make them tribute one monster they control, their choice. You can only use this effect of Mitsurugi Sacred Boundary once per turn. So, outside of it being recovery, it does force your opponent to tribute a monster. So if you're going up against a Lunalight player that only has a Liger Dancer on board, they are forced, because it does not force the monster to be tributed, it forces the player to do the tribute. Then finally, we're running the 1 Great Purification. When your opponent activates a card or effect, tribute 1 level 5 or higher reptile monster, negate that effect. And if you do, destroy that card. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 reptile monster in your graveyard, special summon it. And if you do, tribute 1 other monster you control. You can only use 1 Mitsurugi Great Purification effect per turn. And you can only use once that turn. So, while that is a great negation, you can use a lot of your Ogdoadic cards as well for that kind of tribute, which can allow you to get them into the graveyard to function for next turn and get around other monster effects if you need it. But that's all the spells and traps that I am running for the deck. Next up, I am going to go over this extra deck. Do note, I am missing a few cards because this deck does lock you into reptiles a lot. It can hurt you with the extra deck build because the extra deck does require reptiles, or well, most of the effects on the board require you to be summoning reptiles from the extra deck, and there's not many extra deck monsters that are reptile that can be summoned. I think the best were the reptilian monsters, and even those are hard to summon in certain cases. Nonetheless, this is what you can actually run if you would like to try it out. So since I'm playing the Super Poly, I'm running a Super Poly package, which is Mud Dragon of the Swamp and Garura Wings of Resonant Life. Mud Dragon is 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types. Your opponent cannot target this card or monsters on the field with the same attribute as this card with card effects. Once per turn, quick effect. You can declare 1 attribute. This card becomes that attribute until the end of this turn. Garura Wings of Resonant Life. 2 monsters with the same type and attribute, but different names. Any battle damage your opponent takes from battles involving this card is doubled. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can draw 1 card. You can only use each effect, or this effect, of Garura Wings of Resonant Life once per turn. So, those are the only 2 fusions I'm really running for the deck, as, like I said, I'm usually reptile locked from being able to really utilize my extra deck that much. Going into the reptiles that are available, I'm playing 1 Reptilian Hydra and 2 Reptilian Melusine. Do note that if you get the Lamia, Reptilian Hydra becomes a lot more affordable and a lot more of a good summon because it requires 1 Reptilian tuner and 1 or more non-tuners. It's a level 6 Synchro. If this card is Synchro summoned, destroy as many monsters your opponent controls with 0 attack as possible, and if you do, draw 1 card for each monster destroyed. So this helps out greatly because it is basically, okay, I activate my Lamia or my Niami, there's at least 1 monster on the board that is 0 attack. I can then summon the Reptilian Codal Go into Hydra. Hydra will at least pop one monster. I get to draw an extra card. Reptilian Melusine is very helpful because it requires one reptile monster and one or more non-tuner monsters. If this card was synchro summoned using only reptile monsters as material, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Once per chain, when your opponent activates a monster effect, except during the damage step, quick effect, you can target one face-up monster opponent controls, change its attack to 0. If this synchro summon card you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you can add one reptile monster from your deck to your hand, so it can help out greatly because since they can't destroy it by battle or card effect, it allows you to really just make it a lot harder for them to beat over it, and it drops their attack to 0, which makes it a lot easier for your smaller monsters to do more damage. Given that these are really the only reptile monsters I'm running in the extra deck because there's not really that many that you can summon, I went with a more heavier Xyz package for follow-up if you still have a bunch of level 8s on board. Which of course I'm running the 1 Heretic Sky Dragon Overlord Heliopolis, 1 Heretic Sun Dragon Overlord Heliopolis, 1 Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, 1 number 107 Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, 1 number 22 Zombie Stein, and 1 Dingirsu, the Orchest of the Evening Star. I know a lot of people are going to be curious as to why I'm running the Dingirsu, because I'm not playing Orchest with it, but the reason why I'm running the Dingirsu is because it requires only 2 level 8 monsters. You can only special summon Dingirsu, the Orchest Evening Star, once per turn. You can Xyz summon this card by using an Orchest Link monster you control as material. Not relevant in Genesys, but it's fine. If a card you control, or cards you control, will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach one material from this card instead. If this card was special summoned, you can activate one of these effects. Send one card your opponent controls to the graveyard, or attach one of your banished machines to this card as a material. So outside of it being a board protection from battle or card effect, it allows you to send one of your opponent's cards that's really annoying you to the graveyard. Next up, we have Heretic Sky Dragon Overlord of Heliopolis. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card or cards on your field, graveyard, or banished cards, quick effect, detach one material from this card, negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. So if you have this on board and your opponent uses Call by the Grave, you can make this detach one material and negate the Call by the Grave, which can help out greatly. Now, this is the one that confuses a lot of people because it's only been seen very rarely. The reason why you play this is because once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, tribute any number of monsters from your hand and or field minimum, then destroy an equal number of cards on the field. So if you have, say, Cruz and Elliot, and you go into Heretic Sun Dragon Overlord Heliopolis, you contribute the Mitsurugi monsters that are in your hand to activate his effect. They will trigger. Now, note it is not the ritual monsters that you can affect, or ritual monsters you can utilize in hand, but you can utilize the effects of the main deck monsters such as Murasuma, Kusanagi, Aramasa, and Saji. You can use those 3 and trigger all their effects by default when tributing for cost off of Heliopolis, which can help out greatly. So it basically turns like a 2-man or a 2-card combo into a, well, basically getting you free advantage. Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, 2 level 8 monsters. You can attach one Xyz material from this card, then target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Monsters you control cannot attack your opponent directly for the rest of his turn except this card. Also, take control of that targeted monster until the end phase, but while this effect is applied, it has its effects negated. Its attack becomes 3,000. Also, its name becomes Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon. So, the reason why we're doing this, if we can't beat over something, let's take control of it and tribute it off for an Ogdoadic monster or a Mitsurugi ritual. Let's do it that way. 107 Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. It's just a wonderful card because you can attach one material from this card once per battle phase at the start of your battle phase, and then detach one material from this card. All other face-up monsters on the field have their effects negated. Also, their attack and defense become their original attack and defense. If you do any of these during the battle phase this turn, each time your opponent's card effect resolves, This card gains 1,000 attack until the end of the battle phase. It can also make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. So it can help out a lot during the battle stage where you need to do more damage. Now this one, it's kind of funny. It's Zombie Stein. Not a lot of people still run this one because it does have a downside in which it requires 2 level 8 dark monsters. That's perfectly fine, but the real downside is that it changes itself to defense and it's 1,000 defense. Must be Exceed summoned, cannot be special summoned by other ways. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach one Exceed material from this card and send one card from your hand to the graveyard. Then target one face-up card your opponent controls, change this card to defense position, and if you do, that face-up card has its effects negated until the end of this turn. So, while being a 4,500 beater, it has the capability of setting up a negate where your opponent can't really activate its effect. So that does help out a lot, and it becomes more interesting because it can beat over a Liger Dancer by itself. All right, so like I said, I'm not running that many cards in the extra deck currently, but I at least wanted to show it to you guys on what I had. Now feel free to edit this deck profile in any way, shape, or form that you feel is right for you. This deck, for me, I like it a lot more pure with the whole reptile aesthetic. Not really interacting with hand traps or anything, but being able to break boards, set up negates, and further drop your opponent's attack to 0. Now, if you want to go for more of an Xyz package, Synchro package, or Fusion package, feel free, as this deck is very malleable and has a lot of different ways to be played. Anyways, guys, I hope you greatly enjoyed this video. And if you did, please go ahead and leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Is it okay if I'm to say I'm catching feelings from all the dealings? Am I astray? What do you say? How are you feeling? Is it the same?